Hello there, people of the internet. Question for you guys. Should you trust surplus ammunition? Many of us in the firearms community, we have like old school rifles. We collect surplus, military surplus stuff like this Hugo 2447 and 8mm Mauser. Or, for example, blow that hand off of me. For example, another SKS, their surplus 7.62 by 39, very predominant out there. You'd get some of that and run it through this. And for the most part, it will eat it just fine. But the question, should you trust it? Should you trust surplus ammo? And I think that the answer to this question, some people just like make blanket statements over it, like, yes, I absolutely trust surplus ammo. Or some people say, I trust it if I can get it cheap enough, and, now I have myself a good stockpile of surplus ammo. And some people will just say blatantly, no, don't trust any sort of surplus ammo whatsoever, because, you never know what might go wrong, and you never know if something's going to detonate in your face, or you never know if something's not going to go off when you need it to go off. And I think that the ambience of surplus ammo has kind of mixed results whenever it comes to what people do and do not believe surplus ammo is going to be able to do. So whenever it comes to surplus ammo and what it is that you are wanting to trust it with, there's a couple of things you have to take into consideration. Like, for example, what are you going to use it for? The surplus ammo for, actually trusting it to do its job. What is that job that you need done? Like, for example, 10, 15 years ago, getting yourself a Mosin Nagant with those surplus spam cans of 440 round, the surplus 7.62 by 54 rim, those 440 round spam cans, those were very reliable and very accurate, and those tended to be extremely good ammo for not a whole lot of money. However, it was corrosive, so you had to take care of your rifle after firing it, otherwise you were going to completely destroy the bore of that rifle. So that is one of those things that you had to pay attention to. But it was surplus ammo that was known to be reliable, it was stored very, very well, and it was not overly expensive. So in the event that you had to rely on it for something, then you know that you could trust that particular type of ammunition in that particular rifle for the job that you need done. Now, my personal opinion, if you're going to trust surplus anything, do not put your life in the hands of that surplus item. You shouldn't trust your life to a surplus Mosin Nagant in 2023 anyway. However, there's plenty of other applications for a rifle like that, especially during the time periods where the rifle and ammunition were incredibly cheap to get your hands on. But no, you definitely should not trust your life to surplus stuff, especially if you do not know how those things were stored, and especially if you do not, there's just too many factors out there as to why you should not trust your life to surplus stuff. Maybe that particular batch of 7.62 by 54 rimmed was stored improperly in some dude's attic, or in some dude's basement, or out in the Florida sun, and now suddenly it's not functioning all that well, and there might be a life-saving situation where you go, aim, pull that trigger, and it goes click instead of bang because the ammunition has gone bad, and you might be in a situation where you're like, oh my god, I am suddenly disarmed because I trusted my life to surplus ammunition and it did not deliver. As a matter of fact, little funny story of when that happened literally to me. I was out and about doing my hunting and whatnot, and I was in a situation where I was almost attacked by a boar. I had my 40 caliber Smith & Wesson with me, 40 S&W, and I went to draw that because I was under the impression I was literally about to be attacked by a boar. Well, it has just so happened that I was not attacked by that boar, and so I ended up not having to draw that handgun. And I don't know, a week later, maybe a little bit less, I ended up going out to my gun range with my buddy, and I tried sending some lead down range with that 40 Smith & Wesson, same magazine, same ammunition, and not a single round of ammunition inside of that magazine went off. The ammunition that I had gotten for that thing at that particular point in time was actually surplus police ammunition. I can't remember who or where, and I know I bought it off of a distributor online, but it was surplus police stuff Right now, surplus police handguns and 40 Smith & Wesson handguns and 40 Smith & Wesson ammunition can be found pretty easily on the market. But this particular batch of ammo that I had gotten was not good, evidently. So had I needed that to defend myself against this boar, I would have been in a pretty gosh darn bad situation because that ammunition was not functional. So no, do not trust your life to surplus ammunition. Go out and get yourself stuff that you know for a fact is going to function. All of that being said, like I said before, there are plenty of times where you can use surplus ammunition without needing to bet your life on it. Should you trust surplus ammunition for your life? No, but should you trust it out at a gun range? Sure. Depends on the firearm that you're using and the surplus ammo that you're using. This right here is Turkish 8mm Mauser stuff, and this is known to run particularly hot. A lot of people go into the comments and they tell me, no, it does not run hot, it runs to spec. And to those people I will say, yeah, there is some stuff that runs to spec, but it depends on the batch that you get. From my experience, from the chronographing I have seen and the testing that I have done, if you get yourself a early and mid-war World War II batch of Turkish 8mm Mauser ammunition, that stuff tends to run hotter than pre-war and late-war 8mm Mauser ammunition. Normally this stuff is going to be traveling, it's a 155 grain projectile that should be traveling at about 3,000 feet per second, but mid-war stuff tends to travel more about 3,200 feet per second approximately. And there's very, very clear signs of this stuff being overpressured. Some people will say, well, it's meant to run in machine guns. No, don't run this in anything that has any sort of recoil operating system, because it is not designed to run at those higher pressures, and you will have issues. It is very well known that this stuff blows up any sort of self-loading firearm. However, if you have a bolt action, nice strong one like this Mauser 98 that I have right here, then this stuff right here is absolutely going to be, it's not going to prove to be any sort of danger inside of your bolt action system. Now, there are some caveats to that. There's some ammunition out there that is not something that you would want to trust even in a Mauser 98 action, but this particular Turkish ammunition, this particular batch of ammunition, I absolutely trust out of my 8mm Mauser 98 actions, especially considering that this surplus stuff, all I'm doing is I'm sending lead downrange. There are times where I get hang fires or duds with this stuff, so it's not something that I would want to bet my life on. But do I trust it not to kill me by exploding my rifle? Yes, I do trust it for that, considering that I'm running it through a nice, strong Mauser 98 action. Now, should you trust surplus ammunition for hunting purposes? Yeah, you could absolutely trust surplus ammunition for hunting purposes. Not necessarily, well, there's certain laws and certain kinds of restrictions that you have to follow in certain areas based off of the bullet type that you're going to use for hunting purposes. And so as a direct result of those laws and whatnot, a lot of places don't allow for surplus ammunition to be used for hunting. But in the event that the grid goes down, in the event that laws no longer matter, in the event that there's a societal collapse, then guess what? Those bullet types, those laws don't necessarily matter anymore in a situation like that. So as a result, yeah, you absolutely could use your surplus ammunition for hunting purposes. Or you could use it for dispatching of critters or nuisances or things like that. You could use it for a good universal go-to cartridge for being, well, it's a good universal go-to cartridge for things that aren't life-threatening. It's not something that I would want to, like I said before, bet my life on it, but I got no problems clinking steel down range, or I got no problems, putting something down with it, assuming that something is not trying to kill me in return. Not only that, but this surplus stuff, you can get a lot of it for not a lot of money in comparison to modern manufactured stuff. So it's a really good way to get a bunch of rounds for not a lot of money if you are comparing it to its modern counterparts. For example, this surplus Turkish stuff runs typically about 35-40 cents a round, depending on where it is that you get it, versus modern 8mm Mauser, which can run more like $1.25 a round, depending on where it is that you get it. So I'm able to send lead down range with this rifle and have a lot more ammunition to be able to do so with this surplus stuff than I can with my old stuff. Of course, this stuff is corrosive and it is unreliable. Sometimes it doesn't always go off. So I do have to clean the rifle. And there are times where I will have to do more than one primer strike on the cartridge in order to get it to detonate. This particular batch has been pretty good to me, though. There's certain batches that are just more decent at being more reliable and more accurate. And this particular batch, like I said, is actually fairly on the decent side. If this was all I had, I would not feel that bad about relying on this and betting my life on this, simply because, like I said, this particular batch seems to be pretty decent. Now, that being said, I do not intend to bet my life on this. Wouldn't it be ironic if this couple of rounds I have in this rifle ended up having some duds and hangfires? Let's find out if that's the case. Well, that one seemed to fire just fine. And these right here do have quite a bit of recoil behind them. They are quite spicy, quite potent rounds. Even if we want to argue that they are not overpressured, a 155 grain projectile traveling at the 3,000 feet per second, that is a very heavy cartridge moving very, very rapidly. This is a powerful rifle here. Oh, what you looking at? Oh, we got ourselves a dud. One that did not fire. So I'm just going to stand here for a second just in case this does decide to go off. Doesn't look like it, so we're just going to recock this thing and try that again. There we go, she fired that time. That is the greatest bout of irony, me saying that this particular batch is quite decent. However, that being said, I have fired, I don't know, 200 rounds or so out of this particular batch, and I've only gotten like 2 or 3 hang fires, which is pretty good for Turkish surplus ammunition. Let's see if this one is going to be a hang fire or dud. Nope, that one fired just fine. That one actually felt more potent than the others. What year is this one? This one is 1941. That explains it. The other ones were like 1943. I just kind of grabbed them, though I didn't really pay attention to the dates. But yeah, there's a really good spout of a really good example of when you would not want to trust surplus ammunition with your life, because if you have a dud like that and that right there was your life-saving round, guess what? Now you are really in for a bad time, bad situation. That's not what you want. Or if you have inconsistent pressures or inconsistent powers behind your cartridges, for example, that last one I fired definitely had more recoil behind it, so it definitely had more pressures and more powers, or more power behind that projectile going downrange, that's going to have a different point of impact. So you just never know what it is that you're going to get with that surplus ammunition, and you never know if you're actually going to hit your target with your round, because one round you fired might be right on point of aim, but then you have another one from a different year or a different factory, something that has a different powder charge, different powder type, something like that, where you pull that trigger and you get much more recoil because it's a much more powerful round, and next thing you know, you're hitting a foot high and you miss your target. So yeah, those are things that can happen. All this being said, thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate your time. Do you trust surplus ammo? I don't trust my life on it, but there are some stuff that I think I would be okay with trusting my life with. Like, there are some batches of 8mm Mauser ammunition out there, like Yugoslavian stuff and Czechoslovakian stuff, things that are decent quality and that have a really, really good reputation. Or like GP11 Swiss ammo. That stuff is known to be incredibly accurate and incredibly precise. I would not feel bad about trusting my life to something like that, assuming that I got myself a decent rifle that I know would be reliable and could handle things like that. All this being said, like I asked, do you guys trust surplus ammo, and for what purpose? And besides that, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I will see y'all on the next episode, and we'll move on from there. I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.